This is the story of Jim Hindman. Jim has started many companies, including one we have all heard of, Jiffy Lube. He has been a football coach, an owner of nursing homes, a hospital administrator, and even was the director of medical administration for Trans World Airlines John F. Kennedy Space Center's Occupational Health Center. You can hear his full story on Community Trailblazers podcast. So, Jim, I want to know a couple of things. Things like, how is the coronavirus affecting you and your current situation? And then I also want you to think about how, as a hospital administrator, you would have dealt with some of the challenges that they are facing today. So we want to talk about both hospital administrator role and current today. So let's start out with today. How is the coronavirus affecting you today? Now, you live out on a farm right now, kind of out and away. So our internet may be a little spotty, but we're going to do the best we can.
The coronavirus has affected me in the form of restriction. And while they can restrict my physical movements, I at least can keep my mind working. For example, in the time that I've had to be alone, I've thought about new franchises that we could start, how we can help with the problems that are out in the community today. I have a great interest in children and young people, as you know, or any struggling person. And so I think of ways that I could possibly be helpful. And I think the main thing is, to keep a positive attitude, to keep the right spirit in mind, and keep in mind that this too we shall overcome. As to how this fits into administration, particularly hospital and nursing home administration, the main thing is to encourage people to stay positive, to believe that this too shall end, to believe that their little bit of contribution, whatever it might be, whether it's in housekeeping or the dietary or nursing, every single part of it is helpful and meaningful. And I think the main thing is that even though we're subject to the restrictions, the company, the idea that they can see that there's somebody out there that is interested in them, lifts them up a little bit, gives them the future for tomorrow. Agree?
Agreed, and I think everybody needs that right now. And what is really good is that you brought out that there are more than just the doctors and nurses that are affected by this in a hospital and nursing home. The people who...
That's true. People all throughout the institutions are critical, whether it's the housekeeper, the dietary, the support people and technicians that are there, all of whom are filling a needed role. I recall the number of people that came to your assistance when you made clear the kind of problem you were facing. And as we think about the problem that we as a nation and as a world are facing with a disease that seems almost insurmountable, we too shall overcome. And by working together, as you can so often see on television, that will happen, I believe.
What about the lack of supplies for people? What can they do? Is there anything that seems to be the biggest problem?
The challenge that we all face is, what do we have to work with? And if we don't have it, how do we improvise? And I recall from personal experiences the need to fulfill these functions with alternative solutions. And I am mentally thinking of critical situations in my hospital experience when we did not have the proper equipment. For example, if the autoclaves, which are similar to one of the equipments that they use today, we had to find a way to improvise. And sterilizing and keeping it wholesome for each other is what the goal is, and that's what we're trying to achieve through original thinking, I think.
So what should a hospital administrator do today?
I think the first thing the hospital administrator has to do is to have a word of daily encouragement and ask the people to pull together and ask for divine guidance. And I think that everybody understands, or at least remind them of their critical role that they play. No matter what job they have to fill, it's an important job. And each have an individual contribution to make. And so we might not think of ourselves as the key to the solution, but lo and behold, with a little bit of effort and God's, guidance, we will survive and well.
So what improvisations, what things could they do when they don't have the masks and they don't have the protective gear? Do you have any ideas of how they can improvise?
Well, the first thing I would do is to make everyone aware of the problem and ask for solutions that they may hold, regardless of how insignificant it may seem. And I recall from personal experiences that uh, answers come from the strangest places. And it's what I see today in that they've come up with new ways to provide instruments, they've come up with new ways to provide masks. And the main thing is the mental attitude. And I think the importance of having a message from their leader, whether it's a head nurse or whether it's the OR supervisor or the administrator, there's a need for people to hear that everyone believes and pulls together, especially at a time like this when there are significant challenges in facing us all.
Who do you think are the most vulnerable people in their society with this virus?
Well, clearly the aged are very, very susceptible to reception of this particular illness. I think the other receptive person is the careless, the one who doesn't follow the rules, the suggestions. And I do believe knowledge can be obtained from the television, the newspaper. I have a legal problem with my vision. I'm legally blind. And so my wife reads to me from today's paper the new developments that are in the paper that pertain to the problem. And that enables me to send word to other people that has probably come from another source. So with that kind of teamwork, I'm able to participate in offering solutions that seem to be helpful.
So, Jim, what are some of the solutions that you have offered?
Number one, I have always said to believe in the art of the possible, that there's no problem that we're going to face or that we faced in the past that we were not able to overcome. And yes, sometimes the price has been too great, and the techniques that we need to keep the faith is it's tough. It's very tough. But you have to keep reminding yourself that this too shall pass, and that somehow, some way, I can overcome the challenge in front of me immediately. And I think importantly is to recognize that no matter the size of the challenge, it may be small before it gets to be to the whole large problem. But if we handle the little small ones, then the big one will somehow come into size that we can handle.
That's a very good point. Very good. So, personally, you are thinking about moving. Describe where you are now and then where you're going.
My experiences as an executive have allowed me to live on a farm very near the college that I worked at. I worked at the program at Western Maryland College, which has a different name today, with a wonderful staff that was present at that time. Dr. Ralph John was the president, and he had the need to get the right message through to his students. And I was one of the people that helped him do that, even though it was in a small segment of the program. In other words, my main job was to coach the football. But in coaching football, you have to share your philosophy of life with each and every athlete. And then you have to get them to understand that there will be some people that are better than you, and they will get more time than you do. And getting that message across without destroying their desire to improve is, I think, a key to success. And so that was part of my philosophy. And I tried to get the assistant coaches to think that way, to act that way. And no matter how desperate the effort, the idea was that they could improve, and ultimately they would be good enough to be a starter and good enough to be a star, and especially to themselves. If they were a star to themselves, that was enough. I
So
think.
you live on a farm now with horses? Do you still have your horses?
Well, we have retired horses. We have retired in the active horse business. We raised horses, and we had some cattle, and we have some chickens, and we have some ducks. But basically, the farm is mainly in 90 acres of pasture and grass to cut. And I have a wonderful staff to do the work. And it's the same as football or any other sport. You've got to have team players that are good at some specific job, and they are assigned those jobs that they're good at. And we assign the ones that they're not good at to somebody who is, but together they come together and they make a team. And having the recognition as an adult that it takes a team to get a job done, And so you've got to have a number of people I am not able to do a number of things that I did at one time. And so I'm fortunate in being able to delegate to the many people that I have surrounding me. And at the end of the day, I say what I used to say as a coach, ain't it great?
Hmm. So you are leaving there before too long, and you've decided to go to assisted living. Is that right?
Yes. You know, there comes a time in everyone's life when they have to face retirement. And to a great extent, I don't think that all the problems are solved by any means. But in terms of my physical ability, in terms of my age, I've made the decision to retire. And in so doing, I have picked a place with my daughter's assistance. My daughter, Cindy, is a physician, married to a physician. And the unfortunate thing, they're both in pediatrics. And at 85, I'm a little old to be considered a candidate of theirs. But they have helped me in a tremendous way to find the right place and to begin to assemble the transition of the living that we've had here at this multiple building farm to a much smaller environment. But there too, there will be things to do and we will participate. I do think that no matter how old we are, study is a very important part of our life. We need to keep our minds active and refreshed. And so the way you do that is you begin to read what other people's experiences were and how they handled the challenges that were accompanying their time in life. So that's the way I look at this retirement, and I look at the move to a smaller facility, and I hope that somebody has as much enjoyment of living as I have had living on this wonderful farm.
Will you keep the farm or are you going to sell it?
We've offered it for sale, and but we will move regardless of whether it's sold or not, and leave it in the hands of God. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we cannot control things that are beyond the scope of events. So we know that it's a good piece of property. We know that it has value, and when the current challenge is controlled, things get back to normal. There will be a place in the market for this beautiful farm.
Well, Jim, we just wish you so much happiness and luck. I'm sure you will shake up that new place. I'm sure you will bring your positive thinking into that new place and get them all enthused about life as you are.
Life is the art of the possible. And so if I feel like I can get out of bed and up and about, I'm going to find some new way of making life possible for those I'm surrounded by. And I certainly do appreciate the work you're doing. I think that those of us who have the opportunity to listen to you, not only because of the questions you ask, but because of the very nice way that you handle it, makes me comfortable and relaxed and hopefully sharing beneficially with others.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you taking the time today. It was so good of you to talk about your message. We all need happiness and positivity in today's environment. And you brought your own special brand and your own dose of that. Thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome.